What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Big Blue Avenue. I'm your host, Tom Scavetta, joined alongside my co-host, Sam Cardona. Sam, it was a rough Monday night. Have you recovered? How are you doing? What's going through your head? Hello.
Hello. I feel like every week you ask me this, and every week I say, physically I'm fine. Mentally, not okay. This was another rough week. Um, it was not an ideal situation in prime time. I mean, it's these prime time games that are really stressing me out. The fact that everybody is watching them and they're not good football games, and and of course, like that big giant Cardinals comeback, which is our best game this year so far. That's in a 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock slot or whatever it was. So it's been a little bit rough, but we're here for another therapy session this week, so we'll make it through.
Yeah, very similar to week one. Just to briefly recap here, the Giants, abysmal performance. They got wrecked by the Seahawks, 24-3 Monday Night Football. Possibly, Sam, the worst offensive line performance in franchise history, really missing Andrew Thomas and John Michael Schmitz, who left the game early with an injury. People calling for Bobby Johnson's head. No Saquon Barkley. They made him and them and Daniel Jones made Devon Witherspoon look like an all-pro, even though he is likely on his way, but they could have minimized his individual damage. We saw Dable furious with DJ. Just before we bring up Doug here, I mean, a couple quick hits. This was bad. This was really bad. And you were saying before we went live that you actually started watching YouTube during the game. This game lost your attention.
Literally. It literally did. I had the TV on in front of me and I had my computer next to me, and I was like, I'm not even interested in watching this game right now because I didn't see any sort of fire. I didn't see any sort of light that there could be a comeback or anything like that. It just looked bad. So I sat in front of my TV, but I barely watched the game like post third quarter. Basically all the fourth quarter I did not pay attention to. So it was just not entertaining. That's the thing too. It's like when it's in these primetime slots, you at least want a good game, even if they lose. But they're not. They're just not entertaining.
I don't blame you at all for sitting out the second half, however long it was. But quickly here, folks, if you want to check out more of our content, we are on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. We appreciate everyone's support. And of course, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where the majority of our content comes out. Sam, we got a lot to talk about, and I really want to talk about it with our guest tonight of GMEN HQ. Doug Rush joins the show. Doug, how are you doing? I see the black screen there. Are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Let's
Hear you. Just
camera doesn't seem to be cooperating here, but I promise I'm here. I mean,
no worries.
I look like the Giants' offensive line in disguise.
Halloween costume of the year.
Yeah. Should I come back and join?
Yeah, you can try and come back. Yeah, you can exit and come back.
All right, let me try this. I'll be
hold it.
Let me try this.
Sounds good. So we'll get Doug back up in a moment. Apologies, folks. Sam, while we're waiting for Doug, let's just get right into it. I mean, we saw Dable furious with Daniel Jones. In your opinion, and I hate to ask you this question because I know how both you and I feel about him, have you lost any faith in Daniel Jones following Monday night's game? Do you still believe in him? Do you believe in him but have lost confidence and faith in him? Do you not believe in him at all? What is your take at this point? Because we know the O-line was bad. There's no denying that.
Right.
And we're big supporters of him, but he himself was also bad on Monday Night Football, bad to the point where it was unwatchable.
Yeah, no, I definitely was not thrilled with Daniel's performance. And we've had that feeling in the past as well, but obviously it was earlier in his career, and like I hate to say that I've lost faith in him because I know the second that we say that he'll pop off and in another game and show us that Daniel Jones that we know can play good football. Um, and even Micah Parsons tweeted out how he was like, people will blame Daniel Jones, but look at this line. And you can blame the line as much as you want, but you're right. He did not play a good game, and he was not playing smart in any way, shape, or form, which is why Dable was so upset with him because they've had bad games in the past, and we don't ever see Dable really that upset with Daniel Jones because he knows that there's other factors here that are affecting the game. I don't want to say that I've lost faith in him per se, but it's definitely on the decline recently, especially just the fact that we're paying him all this money. Like before, when it was the rookie contract, it's one thing, but $160 million is not the performance that we should be getting if we're paying this much money.
It's definitely a lot of money, but we have Doug backstage. Let's introduce our guest of the evening from GMEN HQ, Doug Rush. Doug, thank you so much for joining us.
We got him.
How's it going, my friend?
I'm doing good. I was this camera situation. It worked, and then all of a sudden it didn't work. It's kind of like the Giants defense almost. Like it worked, it didn't work, and then now slowly working. But yeah, no, glad to be joining you guys.
No, thank you so much. We're excited to have you. I've seen some of your content in the past, and I like what you tweet out sometimes. So I figured, let me see if I can get Doug on. I'd like to talk with him and pick his brain a little bit. But before we dive, obviously you caught us in talking about Daniel Jones. But before we discuss that, why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your work, what you do regarding New York Giants football?
Sure. So I've been covering the Giants since 2009. I've been around Bleacher Report, USA Today. Wrote for this little company called Sports Media 101. I've been covering the Giants primarily. So let's see, 14 years now of the 19 that I've been a sports writer. So I'm around. I still like to, but not so much pen to paper anymore. It's more like everything's digital now. So just kind of still like to write, and everything's social media based. But yeah, it's always. I took a year off of writing to when my daughter was born. So, but it's I feel good to get back into writing, and I always enjoy interacting with everybody and talking Giants football. And that's, I mean, even through the bad seasons, it's always good to talk about football and talk football with fine folks like you guys. So,
thank you.
Love that.
We appreciate
Lovely
that.
stuff. Sam, why don't you get started here? We have a lot to get into. Want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, because I'm so stumped.
We will start with last week. Tom and I were just discussing Daniel Jones's performance and everything like that. So why don't we just kind of take a broad stab here and just say what were your biggest takeaways from the Seattle game? Seeing this game, seeing the poor performance basically in all aspects and in every way with this team. What was the biggest takeaway that you took from it?
So the Giants were basically in a must-win situation at 1 and 2, with two very, very difficult games coming up, going to Miami and then at Buffalo, another primetime game. And without Saquon Barkley, without Andrew Thomas, basically two of the most key people on the offense, not named the quarterback. And I wanted to see if Daniel Jones, the $160 million quarterback, because now that's going to be attached to him because you got the big boy contract. You got the quarterback contract. You have to play like that person who deserves that contract. And especially since a lot of the fan base doesn't still believe that he's that guy. And I wanted to see if he could lead this team in a very difficult scenario on prime time against a very stingy Seahawks team that was bringing the house every single play. And unfortunately, I saw a lot of the same mistakes that we saw of Daniel Jones back in year 1 and 2 and 3 when he was making, especially under, Joe Judge and Jason Garrett, and I mentioned it all the last 48 hours, staring down receivers. And even Devin Weatherspoon mentioned it, and that was something they scouted, that he stares down the first target. And if you notice on the pick six, he was staring down Paris Campbell. And I think year one and year two, you understand that. A rookie making this, not year five for a guy who's supposed to be making $40-50 million a season. That's not exactly something that you want to see from a guy that you want to impose your confidence in. Missing reads, missing receivers. He missed Wan'Dale Robinson several times. I mean, Wan'Dale was even jumping up and down saying, I'm open, and he threw it away on 3rd 11. And then obviously the pick six, he had Darren Waller wide open. And instead of trying to jam the ball into Paris Campbell and maybe he gets in, maybe he gets tackled at the 1, he gets picked off. Whereas if he had thrown the ball back into the end zone where Darren Waller had nobody on him, okay, maybe Darren Waller misses it and it's an incomplete, but it's not going to be a pick six. At most, it's a touchdown. That was the dagger of the game because at that point, it was still 14-3 and it was still a ball game. 14-10 would have put the Giants right back into it. They could have fought in the fourth quarter. We could have had a decent Monday Night Football game. Instead, you go to 20-3, and that was the game because the Giants weren't scoring. They were getting blitzed all game. They were getting pressured all game. And that was kind of like the air just got taken right out of the stadium. And that pick six, that was it because then the Giants had nothing left. People started to leave. People started to turn off the game. That was it. And that's like, it was like the most deflating feeling watching that because you wanted to see, and Daniel Jones, the play before, he got the first down scrambling on the 3rd down. Like, it's like, all right, the Giants are going to actually, I felt like the Giants are going to score on this play, on this drive and actually give the fan base something to cheer about because they've just been waiting and they've been booing and they've just been sick of watching a bad football team for most of the game. And then all of a sudden it's like you get this drive going. It's like, okay, they're going to score. They're going to do something. They're going to show some fight and get into it. And then the pick six. And then that was it. And that was the game.
Right. Obviously a terrible performance for Daniel Jones. And I mean, by the way, Sam and I are huge Daniel Jones supporters, defenders, but we cannot defend what we saw on Monday night. We defended him after Dallas. We can't defend him after Seattle. We just can't. It was bad. San Francisco wasn't good either. Arizona was okay. It was great in the second half, but quite frankly, it's a big problem, Doug. It's huge. I won't say he's the biggest issue, but quite frankly, he's a part of the issue and a significant part of the issue because, like you said, year 5, you can't be making those mistakes. And Sam, I think, we were really high on him, especially after last season. And it seems like not just him, though, the whole team has just regressed. The whole team has just regressed. And it's very, very concerning. And, we're talking about takeaways from Seattle. What is there to take away? The team sucks. Like, what else is there to talk about? Doug, I mean, we'll start with you here on this one. Is there any takeaway from this game and from the first 4 games of this season why the team has regressed?
I mean, the feeling afterwards was, and I kind of get because I like to check social media. I like to check the vibe of the fan base, and it feels like we've gone back to 2017 to 2021 when the Giants weren't winning many games, and all of a sudden we're talking about the possibility of draft picks and the NFL draft. And I hated talking about the NFL draft, but yet here we are, early October, and we're talking about possibility of Giants placement. By the way, they'd be picking 10th today if the season ended. When I was with USA Today, that was my weekly thing because the Giants were so bad and I felt like they were eliminated early in the season. So it was covering what place the Giants would be picking in the draft if the season ended today. And it was so, like, you want to call it demoralizing, if you want to call it like just frustrating, but at the same time, like I felt like I was tracking the draft because the Giants weren't looking for a draft pick or they weren't looking for a playoff appearance until last season. And that was like, it was a breath of fresh air. And now I feel like we've just gone backwards. And it just feels like, I don't know if they got too comfortable with making the playoffs, winning a playoff game. And I felt like after winning 9 games in the postseason, winning a playoff game, it's like you're supposed to take the next step as a young franchise who I felt like actually started to figure out how to win football games. winning against Tennessee, winning against Carolina, the Green Bay game in London, Baltimore, the Jacksonville game where they hung on by the goal line. Like, these are games that they would have lost in the previous years under Joe Judge. And I thought with Brian Dable, like, they're figuring out how to finish and win. And I feel like it's gone like a complete 180, and it's like back to the same stuff we used to see during the losing times. And I don't know if it's they got too comfortable, they believe their own hype. It's hard to, because we saw some fight in the Arizona game. We saw, they have the talent to score and to stop people in the Arizona game. And, people are saying, but it was only the Cardinals. The Cardinals beat the freaking Dallas Cowboys. And it's like, it's kind of like, stop knocking the Cardinals, because the Cardinals have a lot of fight. They have some talent on there. Joshua Dobbs, like, okay, he's not Patrick Mahomes, but that guy fights, and that guy plays his guts out every single game. Like, they're a scrappy young team, and the Giants, they had their throats being pressed on in the first half, and they had to show that they could beat the Cardinals in the second half, and they scored 31 points in the second half, and they showed that they can fight. And then they kind of got backed into a corner with San Francisco. Nobody thought they were going to beat San Francisco on 4 days rest without Saquon Barkley, after the fight that they put up against Arizona. And, okay, that game was what it was. We all saw that game for what it was back in April when they put them on 4 days rest, again, on a Thursday night game. Understood. But this game here against Seattle was kind of like, it was kind of like the pulse test. Like, do you guys want to, save your season, get to 2-2, actually show the fans that you guys want to be a potential playoff team again? And, it's just felt like the magic that everything it had from last year, when they were 3-1, going to London, won that one, got to 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, looked like this just out of nowhere team that had fight and was just revitalizing the entire fan base. It's like all of a sudden it's like gone, and it looks like back to where Joe Judge was coaching the team, and just looked like they had no desire at times. And maybe they'll go to Miami. Maybe if Saquon returns, he looked like he was okay at practice. Maybe with Saquon returning, they'll get some of that fight back. But right now, I don't know if it's because without Barkley, without Andrew Thomas, and just guys aren't stepping up when needed. And right now, the Giants look like a very lost football team that is headed towards the top 5 of the draft, as opposed to trying to fight for a playoff spot again.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I keep saying that about the Cardinals as well. Like, I don't think that the Cardinals are as bad of a team as people are expressing them to be. I mean, I want them to go into, I think they're playing the Bengals this weekend. I took the Cardinals. The Bengals have been looking horrible. So I agree, especially after they just beat the Cowboys. And it's just all around. Andrew Thomas, I feel like, is such a vital part of this team as a whole, that without him there, the fact that we could put 31 points up, that's a huge deal for us. We have struggled so much throughout this year and last year and the year before, with just putting up points. Like, I feel like when we've done this show in the past, Tom, I feel like my keys to the game have been like, get in the end zone, which is just like, yeah, obviously. So the fact that I know we can do it, that's where that little bit of faith and that little bit of hope has been lying for me. And I do want to ask you, because Tom was mentioning, how we feel about Daniel Jones, and throughout this season, we saw him with that comeback win and that fire in him as a quarterback. But like right now, where are you standing on Daniel Jones, and were you ever thinking like, this is the guy, this is the guy who's going to bring our team back into the playoffs, and with all this money and everything that we're paying him? What are your thoughts on Daniel Jones as a whole right now?
I've been back and forth on him throughout his career. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I was very inspired by him as a rookie, who he made his mistakes, but at the same time, he threw 24 touchdown passes. And, when he debuted, he started out 2-0, and he gave the Giants fan base a lot of confidence that he could potentially be this guy and learn under Eli Manning. And then they made the worst mistake possible in bringing Jason Garrett as the offensive coordinator for him. And it's all that work that Pat Shurmur did in year one just got undone. And the thing that concerned me early on with Daniel Jones was the mistakes he made, the turnovers, things I've been mentioning, in year 5 early on, staring down receivers, not making the proper reads, holding onto the football a little too long until we got to 2022. And I feel like Brian Dable and Mike Kafka kind of like had to put him on back in the lab and undo all the mistakes that, Joe Judge and Jason Garrett made. And, even though he threw 15 touchdowns, he also rushed for 7, and he was also missing 4 of his top wide receivers that he was expected to have in week 1. Kenny Golladay was a ghost. Kadarius Toney was hurt and then traded. Sterling Shepard was out by week 3, and Wan'Dale was out before Thanksgiving. And yet they made it work with Darius Slayton. They made it work with Isaiah Hodgins. Daniel Bellinger came back from the eye injury. And Saquon was tremendous the entire season. Like, they had this makeshift offense that they had to come up with. And yeah, he threw 15 touchdowns. But guess what? The Giants won a lot of games, and a lot of games that normally they wouldn't win in the past. And people tell me, they started to wear it down. But they also won a lot of games when it counted the most, like in Washington on a Sunday night. They beat Indianapolis. And and then they almost beat Minnesota on Christmas Eve, but then they went and beat Minnesota back in the playoffs, which was tremendous. And that's when Daniel Jones had a 300-yard game, a couple touchdowns, and won the Giants' first playoff game since they won the Super Bowl, back in 2012. Like, these are things that some quarterbacks don't ever get to experience. And Daniel Jones did that. And I felt, okay, maybe he's finally figured it out. Maybe Brian Dable has finally unlocked everything that, that they first saw him in 2019. And maybe they're going to finally, and I was okay with the contract. I always felt he was going to get a little less. I was okay with the numbers because of the way they constructed the contract, because it was less on year 1, because it allowed the Giants the flexibility to sign other players. And then it got to year 2 and year 3, the cap number goes up. But I'm thinking, if Daniel Jones' performance improves, then it's not a big deal because it's a bargain contract for the way it's structured. But now we're starting to see the mistakes again. And that's really concerning. Like, can these things be fixed? And, if Brian Dable can't and Mike Kafka can't fix these things, at the same time, the Giants set themselves up with the contract being the way it is, where after 2024, if they decide that they want to look at another quarterback in the draft, I'm not going to blame them, because they also inherited Daniel Jones. If they want to look at their own guy and they're picking in the top 5 or even the top 10, I will not blame the Giants if they decide to draft somebody, put Daniel Jones on notice, and it's like, hey, look, thanks, we gave you a contract, but at the same time, you kind of also didn't live up to it, and we kind of want to go to our own guy. That's kind of the nature of the NFL business, and the Giants set it up with 2 outs, and if they have to use the first out, that's so be it. That's the business side of it, and unfortunately, Daniel Jones is the one to blame, because granted, yes, he's been stuck with the worst offensive line in football, and they've been ranked last for the last 4 weeks. At the same time, it's been shown the offensive line isn't everything to blame. The interceptions, some of them, yes, have bounced off receivers. Some have also been on Daniel Jones himself, like trying to force the ball on week 1 in Dallas. Should have just ran out of bounds. That you would have kept the ball, would not have been picked off. And then in Seattle, the pick 6 was brutal. And then he throws instead of checking off to his running back, he gets hit and the ball sails into the air and right into Quadri Diggs. Like, those are mistakes we used to see from Daniel Jones back in 2019, 2020, when he was younger. Not when you're in year 5. And just, I like Daniel Jones. I mean, he has not complained one single time since he's been here. I think he has had the right mentality. At the same time, it's hard to be the guy playing after Eli Manning. And sometimes, maybe it just doesn't work out. Maybe Daniel Jones needs to go to a lower market where the pressure's not on, the New York media is not on him. And maybe just, I felt this after 2020, going into 2022, if the Giants decide to cut ties, maybe Daniel Jones just needs to go somewhere else, get a fresh start, and maybe he'll perform well. I know there will be plenty of people out there looking for a starting quarterback with experience who could go out there. And actually, actually after the game, Atlanta was mentioned, that Atlanta should start sniffing around Daniel Jones because of Desmond Ridder. And I'm like, that wouldn't be a bad place for him. And that's whether that happens or not remains to be seen. But I'm starting to think that Daniel Jones right now is the bridge quarterback as opposed to being the long-term franchise quarterback. If the season goes the way it is, unfortunately, I can see if the Giants are picking the top 10, I can totally see the Giants picking another quarterback, and it'll be on to the next guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, we have a comment from a Falcons fan right on cue saying he would take him in a heartbeat. Noah Dibler from Georgia, big Atlanta Falcons fan. He likes Daniel Jones too. And, we'll move on to the next question here. I just want to say one last thing, guys. If you're watching and you're a big Daniel Jones supporter, Daniel Jones is not garbage. That's not what we're saying. And both of you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but he's not going to be a guy that can take you over the top. He needs a good supporting cast around him to be a fringe top 10 quarterback if he's ever going to get there. I thought he was awfully close, but right now we'll have to see. I mean, Doug, I hope you're wrong, but right now you're looking right on. Yeah. Obviously, I think we all hope that we're wrong, but it'll, left to be seen. And that kind of leads me to ask you about the next domino. As far as the offensive line, is it more the coaching or is it more the play? Because obviously we've seen Andrew Thomas is hurt. We saw John Michael Schmitz go down early. I would argue that Schmitz might be their second best lineman already behind Andrew Thomas. I think him and Ben, Ben's not a good center, but he's an average guard, I would say. It's really tough for me. I mean, they held the ball for 36 minutes and turned it over 3 times. It really irks me to say that, whether it's Azudu, I never liked the Azudu draft pick. It was bad. I did not like that pick off the film that I saw in college. I like McKeithen more than Azudu, but something's starting to say to me, if they pick high and Joe Alt is there at 8 to 10, I saw your shirt, so I don't know if you're a Notre Dame fan or not, but I am. I'm taking Joe Alt. I'm replacing Evan Neal with him. I would love that, but
just to show you, this is actually
here on the O line, because
this is actually a New York Giants shirt in green. This is a St. Patty's Day shirt, so
very nice.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think John Michael Schmitz is the second best lineman on the team. And if you look at what they've been trying to put out there after week 1 and with Andrew Thomas out, Azudu he played a handful of games, and you really don't know if he's a guard or a tackle. He's been playing all over, and I think he's started now like 4 or 5 games. He's a young player. John Michael Schmitz, he's playing in his very, very first professional games, and he's hurt now. And it's not clear if he's going to play on Sunday, which Ben Bredeson would probably be the center again. Marcus McKeithen. So before the Seattle game, Marcus McKeithen was slated to start again at right guard. I think it shows the Giants view McKeithen as a starter more than they do Azudu. And I think they want to try McKeithen, who, by the way, lost his entire rookie season to a torn ACL. So this season is basically his rookie year. He's playing his very, very first professional games as well. And then you have Evan Neal, who got a year's worth of experience last year, and he's still very young, and he's still learning. And some, including myself, he might not be a right tackle. He might need to move inside to maybe right guard or left guard, just kind of like what Eric Flowers did, and Robert Gallery, and so many others of the past, Justin Pugh, who also did it as well, going from tackle to guard. It's not uncommon for these big, tall guys who they can't grasp the speedier edge rushers, and they have to move inside because they're big, they're strong, and they can take on, the defensive tackles as opposed to trying to stop the edge rushers. And right now, Evan Neal looks kind of lost at right tackle, and I would almost think maybe moving him inside could help him. I don't know if that's a coaching thing. A lot of people have been very down on Bobby Johnson, who came over with Brian Dable from Buffalo. I've said if they decide to make a move and decide to let Bobby Johnson go, there's a guy out there named Mike Munchak, who was a longtime, he's a Hall of Famer, longtime offensive line coach for the Titans. I was a head coach for 3 years, didn't work out. And then he went to Pittsburgh and turned their line around. And he was with the Broncos and did okay, but he got fired with Vic Fangio's staff. So that's a guy who I would immediately call, because that guy does wonders with offensive lines. Because the other guy I would love to have here is Bill Callahan with the Cleveland Browns, who the Giants wanted to talk to, but once Jason Garrett took over and Jason Garrett stripped Bill Callahan of his play calling duties when they were together in Dallas, Bill Callahan decided to go to Cleveland. So that wasn't happening. Bill Callahan could have done wonders for the Giants offensive line, and I feel like they missed out on that, but that is what it is. But I don't know if Bobby Johnson is the right guy for this current staff, because it's a lot of young, inexperienced players, minus Andrew Thomas, and Mark Lewinsky's still here, but he's not going to be here next year. It's it's almost a $5 million pay savings to cut him. And I feel like it's just this makeshift offensive line with young players, inexperienced players, and at times really not good players. And when you're trying to put somebody in like Daniel Jones, and you're correct, he's a good player, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not even Eli Manning. He's not going to just rise everybody up. Like, he needs good supporting cast around him. And that's what they tried, bringing Saquon back. Having Saquon was a very vital thing. If you notice, the minute they signed him to that contract, Saquon got tagged. Saquon is a very essential part of Daniel Jones. That you're talking about a top 5, even top 3 running back in the league who can catch passes, who can do things that a lot of other backs can't do. Having him part of the offense is key. They went and traded for Darren Waller, who was once a 1,000-yard receiver as a tight end. They went and traded up and drafted Jalen Hyatt, who could burn it down the field. And then that's another thing. They're not even targeting Jalen Hyatt, who's got all this speed, who almost had 100 yards in week 2 and was burning the Cardinals. And then in week 3, he's not even being targeted. That baffles me. Like, just if the running game's not working, and if you need to start doing some quick throws, throw it deep to freaking Hyatt. Go get him. I mean, they started to get Wan'Dale back into the mix, and that's good. But then at the same time, Daniel Jones is also missing Wan'Dale wide open. And he's throwing the ball away when Wan'Dale, granted, he's 5'8". Sometimes he's hard to see, but still, you got a wide open guy and you're completely missing him. Maybe because, and granted, maybe you're running out of pressure and you've had to change the play on the fly, but at the same time, Wan'Dale is one of your targets, a speedy target, and you're missing him, and it's just. It's frustrating a lot of the fan base. It's frustrating to everybody, and I'm sure you've seen Brian Dable throwing tablets, and he's yelling at him on the sideline. It's frustrating to watch a guy that everybody thought was going to be the guy who got this big contract, and it's like almost like everything is going backwards in regression, and it could be the unfortunate story of, oh, here's a guy that could have been the guy, but then just wasn't the guy, and then you're looking on to the next guy. So,
right,
definitely. It's there's a lot of different things, especially with the offense specifically, that are wrong that could be right in any other team. Like, I feel like every time we try to bring somebody on, like Darren Waller, Kenny Golladay, like they just kind of fall apart on this team. But let's go to the other side of the ball for a moment here and just talk about defensively, because they are the stronger part of the team. I do think that the defense has been performing, fairly well. Could be a lot worse on that side of the ball. But out of everybody, because we do have a lot of different stars and people who could perform extremely well, who has impressed you most this season on the defensive side of the ball?
Who has impressed me the most? Isaiah Simmons so far has, I think he needs to play more, but he's looked pretty good when he's played. Thibodeau, for the first 2 games, looked like a ghost. and then I don't know, something got lit under him the last 2 games. He's looked like the guy we saw last year. He's had 3 sacks in the last 2 games. He's had, I believe, 8 or 9 pressures. He's been getting after, and I think it started with the San Francisco game. He was getting after Brock Purdy, and it's just Brock Purdy had Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle waiting for those little dump-off passes, and then the Giants, those guys are hard to stop. And just that was what it was. But, Thibodeau in a game where I felt like a lot of people kind of struggled a bit to get pressure on Geno and at times, Drew Lock. Thibodeau was around all, the entire game. And for the ghost that Aziz was, and granted he was hurt too, but Aziz actually looked like, he was getting back into rhythm. He was pressuring all game. He had at least 5 of them. He not quite getting to the quarterback yet, but, get the pressure on, and eventually the sacks will come. If you continue to, bring the heat, and with Wink Martindale's defense, that's all part of it, is bring the pressure and force the offense to make things happen. Dexter Lawrence, even though the numbers might not say it, Dexter Lawrence continues to be a rock in the middle, and he's absolutely deserving of that contract he got, because being a defensive tackle, you're not always going to get the gaudy numbers that the edge rushers tend to get with sacks and everything, but that guy brings pressure every single day, and he's always got that blue collar hard hat mindset. Just will bring the force every single game. He's been the one, because he got the contract over the summer, and he continues to be the guy, just that rock in the middle. There has never been a question of whether or not he deserved that deal, because he does. He got paid, and he deserves to get paid, and he just continues to be one of the few that has really just in a year where sometimes the defense has had, they wear down as they've been on the field, especially the San Francisco game. Dexter Lawrence hasn't worn down and hasn't looked like somebody who, we have to question whether he gets paid or not. Dexter Lawrence is a probably top 5, interior lineman in the sport for a reason. So, yeah, that's probably the guy who I'm most impressed with, because he got paid and he continues to deserve, like the guy, like we call it playing like the back of your football card. He's playing like it. He's continuing to play like an all-star, a Pro Bowl, or whatever you want to call it these days. That's the one who I think I'd be the most impressed with, because he's living up to the expectations and to the contract.
Right. That's a good pick. For me, I'm going with, Sam and I do this every week, our New York Giants Defensive Player of the Week. This is the player that's really stuck out to me. And Sam, I'll let you roll through this quick here.
Yeah.
Going with Kayvon Thibodeau for me, because of the pass rushing. I think outside of Dexter Lawrence right now, he is the second best player on our defensive front. But I will say I expected Dexter to be this good. For me, I mean, Kayvon is beginning to take that step forward, and you're number 2, Sam. Or Kayvon, I should say.
Yep, definitely. So our player of the week, as Tom said, 2 sacks, 1 PBU, which means that he's had 3 sacks so far this season, and in the last 2 games. This is the first multi-sack game of his career, which is, wish that it would happen a little bit more often. 2023, he's had 9 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hurries, and 1 pass defended in the last 4 games. And he's played 84% of the snaps this season. And so seeing at least a little bit of goodness come out of this past Monday night game.
And awesome. We also forgot, I mean, he was within inches of a potential pick 6.
It's true.
You're right.
The thing that everybody forgets is, and I don't blame him too, because it's just the ball kind of got thrown at him, and he obviously he wasn't ready for it. But
right.
I mean, if he catches that he's gone for 6, and
of course,
and that was just part of him being, a lot of people were down on him the first 2 games because he didn't have good games, and also he got dropped into coverage a lot too, and everybody always just focuses on sack numbers for pass rushers, and you have to remind, like, Justin Tuck once, he didn't start out this like a Micah Parsons. Michael Strahan didn't start out like Michael Strahan either. Like, sometimes these guys take a little bit to come around, and also last year, Kayvon Thibodeau missed the first couple games of the season with an injury over the summer. So like his first game was that Monday night game in Dallas, and some of these like they take time to and as a young pass rusher, I don't know if you saw it last year, like Kayvon Thibodeau got held every single game and didn't get any special treatment or whatnot. And I mean, it looked like at times like Kayvon Thibodeau was like getting headlocked by these offensive linemen. Like he was bringing pressure the entire season. It's just you only see the 4 sacks, and that's not always how edge rushers like make their impact. Like Kayvon Thibodeau was a force all last season, and he got off to the slow start, but then I noticed in San Francisco he was all up in Brock Purdy's face every single. It's just he was good at Purdy was great at getting the ball off very quickly, and he had Christian McCaffrey there, and Christian McCaffrey is just one of the best in the league at making things happen. Having Deebo Samuel, having George Kittle, they just, if not for those guys, Thibodeau would have had a couple more sacks. It's just Brock Purdy was ready, and he knew how to get the ball off quickly. And then, Geno Smith, he's a little bit elusive, but at the same time, Thibodeau got to him twice, and he really was the only one. And Thibodeau again brought a lot of pressure. Same thing with Aziz. It's just, it's coming for Thibodeau, and I think, he'll be heading, be hunting for, Tua on Sunday, and I think slowly, the guy we all expected with the 5th overall pick and to be the one of those top pass rushers is finally evolving into the player that everybody's expected.
Right. And Sam, before we get to you here, I just want to say one thing too to back up Doug's point. Yeah, Geno Smith didn't look great on Monday night. He got hurt. He was okay. He was upset at Isaiah Simmons. It was just an unfortunate bounce or unfortunate fall, in my opinion. But it was a tough break. I mean, I thought the defense was okay. Banks gave up the touchdown to Metcalf. Thibodeau was really coming on. But it just continues. The missed tackling really irks me as well. I'm sure you guys agree. Bobby Okereke, that scary first tackle of the game where Walker had that touchdown run that was called back. Very, very lucky. And then there was a few tackles missed on special teams as well. Outside of Gano, the special teams is atrocious this year. The Seahawks were begging. I mean, they were begging the Giants to take control of this game. Begging them, and they just couldn't do it. So this loss should be taken personally. And I guess as we now get into week 5, Giants bring back Justin Pugh, who all of us know, our 2013 first-round draft pick.
The season is saved.
This season is saved. One of many guys that have been on this offensive line when it struggled. This likely has something to do with maybe JMS's status for week 5. I doubt he plays. Unfortunately, Pugh himself coming off the torn ACL. I don't expect Pugh to be ready for Miami, maybe Buffalo, but I'm happy he's back, and hopefully he can knock some sense into players like Evan Neal, who, guys, I don't know if you saw it today. I'm sure everyone did at this point, but very harsh on his critics, quoting the following. Says the fans who criticize likely flip hot dogs and hamburgers somewhere. Also stated that some of the Giants are fair weather and bandwagons for booing the team when things aren't going well. It also quoted, "Why would a lion concern himself with the opinion of a sheep?" referring to fans such as us or, people who are critiquing him. So, I mean, my thoughts are, Evan Neal just posted an apology 10 minutes ago. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it just came out. I can read it to you guys quick in case this is the first time you're seeing this. Neal said 10 minutes ago on his Twitter account, "I am wrong for lashing out at the fans who are just as passionate and frustrated as I am. I let my frustrations in my play, plus desire to win, get the best of me. I had no right to make light of anyone's job, and I deeply regret the things I said. We are working day in and day out to grow as a team, and this was an unnecessary distraction. I apologize." Thoughts, anybody? Again, I think it was a bad thing to do, but at least he apologized in that see much more we can do. I'm not going to hold this against him long term.
I definitely think that I get that people, players get upset when fans start saying a lot of stupid stuff, like they'll come out and say crazy things all the time, but I get he's frustrated and everything, but this is not really something that you should be saying, in my opinion. Talking about flipping hot dogs and hamburgers, this is a little bit, it might cut a little bit too close to home for some people. Like that's just like I think it's a little just too rough. But overall, I'm glad that he issued an apology. I'm sure some PR person was like, Evan, come on, don't say things like that. But it's not like unprecedented. Evan Neal has not performed. He has not been the player that we expected him to be. And unfortunately, people say some harsh things and like not the right way, but they're also not completely untrue. So I feel for the guy. I know it's really harsh to get criticism, especially unsolicited criticism from people who don't even play the sport. But overall, Evan Neal is just as a player in itself has got to step up to the plate a little bit more, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing. Obviously, you're frustrated, but at the same time, you also have to read the room. Like you're talking about people who come and pay hard-earned money, season ticket holders, especially. Like season tickets for the Giants are not cheap, and even today, tickets for any game is not cheap. And these people pay their hard-earned money to come and watch. They want to watch a winning product, and when you're not doing your job, the fans are within their rights to boo. It shows they care. It's when they don't make any noise and don't say anything, that's when you've kind of lost them. But they boo because they care. They'll cheer you as loud as possible when you do great things and you win and you bring back championships. They'll revere you forever in this town. Eli Manning will never have to buy another meal ever again in New York and New Jersey because of what he's done here. Same thing with Michael Strahan and Justin Tuck and all the other Giant legends who have done stuff. Sean O'Hara, beloved forever. Guys like that saying things about your fan base. This is now, unfortunately, what is going to be remembered right now in the Giant fan base is that Evan Neal not only is not playing well, and he could have just gone about and said, I'm just trying to do the best I can. And, they could have understood that. But now they're going to remember, even with this apology, which, okay, good for him. Somebody got to him, obviously. But now this is what they're going to remember for the next couple of weeks, is that he shot his mouth off and he basically kind of like looked down on the fan base. That's not a good look for somebody who is struggling. This isn't somebody like Saquon Barkley or Darren Waller, like people who are performing well, who are kind of saying this. This is somebody who is really, their job is in being questioned whether or not they can be a long-term player on this team. And this is not, unfortunately, Evan Neal has to hope this kind of blows over, because if he continues to struggle, it's going to be a backlash on him, because the fans will let him have it. These New Jersey fans, they have very long-term memories. They're going to bring signs. They're going to let him have it. And if he, allows pressures and sacks, they're going to really let him have it. So the best thing for Evan Neal to do, aside from the apology, is to step your game up. When the Giants drafted him 7th overall last year, everybody had high expectations because of what the player he was in Alabama, because he came from winning pedigree there. At one time, Evan Neal was considered to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Like that's how high of expectations that everybody had when he was coming from college into the pros. And like I said, maybe he doesn't stick as a right tackle. Maybe he has to go to right guard or left guard or somewhere else. And that's another conversation for another time. But right now, the best thing for Evan Neal to do is just kind of lay low as far as talking and work on the game, because he's still very young and he still has a lot of work to get done. And yeah, he's going to have to survive some of the boos. But you know what? Some other players get booed too, and you work through it. Eli Manning once got booed all in 2006, and all he did was bring back a championship the next year. So Evan Neal has to work on his game and get better and just kind of drown out the boos and try to make them into cheers for himself. Otherwise, this could be a sticking point of what is looked at as Evan Neal's very short tenure with the New York Giants.
There. Which segues into our next segment, folks. Sam, start with you here. Giants at Dolphins. Preview week 5 is upon us. Not feeling too good. Dolphins favored by 11. All-time, Giants lead the series 7-3. This is the Eli Apple revenge game, and we know Sam's Bills pennant up there I think it's on the right of your screen, folks, if you can see. Showing some Buffalo support as well. Look, Bills torched Miami's defense last week, but the Dolphins are just 2 weeks removed from a 70-point outing. Sam, I'm not feeling too good right now about this one.
I just got to chill thinking about this game. After last week, especially, and that's one less day as well for us to be resting, recovering, practicing, so on and so forth, which makes a big difference. I do think that the Dolphins are going to put up a solid amount of points against us. Although the Bills, not to say that we're like the Bills, because at this point I don't think we come close to them right now. But I do think that there was a little bit of exposure last week with the Dolphins. The Dolphins can run up and down the field. Tua is getting better every week, but the Bills did kind of show it off a little bit. Like, all right, they are not indestructible. They put 70 points up against the worst defense in the entire league, the Denver Broncos. So I think that's the little shred of hope that I've been kind of hanging on to here, but unfortunately I'm not seeing the Giants win this game. I hope it's a little bit of more of a better game. I'd love to see a touchdown or two. I'd love to see Darren Waller in the red zone, for God's sakes. I mean, I don't know what it is that every time I get excited about us bringing up a tight end and then they don't ever make it into the red zone. I think it's like this curse or something. I don't know. But I genuinely would just love to see a little bit of fight, a little bit of spark. But unfortunately, I really don't think that we have what it takes to beat the Dolphins right now.
Unfortunately, before the season started, I actually thought maybe the Giants could have a chance just because I had this hope that the offense was going to, be a 30-plus point offense. And then we started playing football and watching the Miami Dolphins just kind of put up points at will and put up points at ease. Even in a bad game, they still put up 20 points, which would have been they still would have beaten the Giants with 3 points. And the Giants right now have scored 46 points total in this season, which is the lowest in the NFL. And the fact that Miami Dolphins have put up, I think, 150 points, which is number 1 in the NFL, that scares me because, Tua is finding, Tyreek Hill, and it just feels like he's especially in the Bronco game, he found everybody at will. And I feel like that's the kind of offense that Miami is running. They just knew how to put up points. And so far, Buffalo embarrassed them. Buffalo put up 48 on them. And I feel like they're going to come into this game against the Giants wanting to get back at a team that's struggling, and they want to put up 35, 40, whatever. And I feel like unfortunately the Giants, it might be their punching bag because the Giants have been struggling to, granted it wasn't all on the defense, but Dallas put up 40. San Francisco put up 30. Arizona almost put up 30. I felt like Seattle could have put up more if they had the ball more. And that's been the thing. The Giants so far have given up a lot of points. And I feel like with this Miami team, they scored well. And I feel like we're going to see more of that. I mean, Deontay Banks did what he could with DK Metcalf, but DK is a freak, and Tyreek Hill is what he is. He's one of the fastest people in the league who is hard to cover. And I feel like the Giants might be walking into a possible offensive massacre, and why they're Miami is favored by 11. Yeah, that's it. Could be potentially a 20-point plus blowout. It might not be pretty on Sunday, and I felt like after this game, people could have gotten fired after the Seahawks game if they put up another embarrassing performance. Could be another. It felt like another game where coaches could deserve to get fired, or somebody could get cut, and I want to at least see some effort, like just show some effort, like make a game of it, and fight like you did against the Cardinals in the second half. And for the most part of the game, the Giants fought the 49ers despite being short-staffed and being outmanned. They fought the Niners until the very end. Show that fight. At least try to fight the Miami Dolphins. At least give the fans something to look forward to. Even if you lose the game, a lot of people are expecting them to lose the game, but fight them. That's probably the most I want to see, is at least the Giants show some fight. They got their faces rubbed in it, embarrassed on Monday night against the Seahawks. Come back, a 1:00 game, and just fight back against the Miami Dolphins. That's what I want to see most, even if they don't win the game.
And DJ typically plays well in the 1:00 window, no? So, Daniel, we're talking to you here. Prove us wrong. Evan Neal, prove us wrong, right? We would love to sit here next week and talk about, Daniel Jones outplayed Tua. He threw some nice touchdown passes. He hit Waller in the end zone. We would love to be doing that. However, I don't think it's happening. I hate to just pounce on what both of you just said, but they're not going to be able to protect Daniel Jones. The Giants have allowed a league-high 36 pressures in week 4, 23 sacks. Jones was sacked 11 times last week with 14 QB hits. No John Michael Schmitz, most likely, with the shoulder injury. Daniel Bellinger also has a knee injury, as Doug mentioned earlier. Our best blocking tight end, in my opinion. And McKeithen and Lemieux also suffered injuries, so Mark Lewinsky might have to start if both of them are out. I don't think both of them will be out. Sam just rolled your eyes on Mark Lewinsky.
Well, I think Lemieux has a groin injury, so
yes.
I think the line that we saw at the end of the game with Izudu, Glowinski, Bredeson, McKeithen, and Neal, I think that is likely going to be the offensive line, unless something changes. I think Thomas is probably not going to be going again with the hamstring. That's likely going to be the offensive line we see it could be a rough day for Daniel Jones because they've been allowing a pressure, and it's a lot of young guys still trying to figure out how to play football. And at the same time, defenses have been basically licking their chops to try and take their shots at Daniel Jones, and Seattle did it. I mean, Miami might try to just copy the blueprint and go after him again. That seems to be what a lot of defenses are doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you got Andrew Van Ginkel there, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips. They're tough pass rushers, those guys. And you have Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins up the middle going up against probably 3 backup offensive linemen if you still consider McKeithen a backup. I mean, he's basically a starter at this point. They won't be able to get explosive plays. But Sam, quickly here, and then we'll go to Doug. 60 seconds for your keys of the game. What are they and why?
Oh, keys of the game. I guess I can throw in score points in there just for funsies. I definitely feel like we're really, like, offensively, we know that it's not going to be working out too well. Like, let's just make this as painless as possible. Defensively, let's step up for the plate. Let's stop this run. Devin A-Chain is insane. Like, he's been running all over the place. So, let's keep this to a dull roar, because we're like we said, we're all very adamant of the fact that it's not going to be a pretty game. It's not going to be good. We're not going to win this game. But I just really think that the defense needs to really step up. the offensive line that we do have, just try as best as you can, because I mean that clip that Micah Parsons put out on Twitter, I mean, it was just ridiculous. Like it was an immediate, just everybody just went to the sides, and Daniel Jones was just like could have died with that hole in that line. It was ridiculous. So I think that's one of my biggest things, and I had put on a script as well. The Dolphins are less than 50% on third downs in terms of conversions. So if we can use that defense to stop the third downs, to not let them convert, I think that's going to be a big factor in this game. I think that it's going to be very helpful for us. Like I said, I can't see the offense jumping on those opportunities and putting points up on the board on those conversions, but at least we can keep the score a little bit lower. But I would say those two are two of the biggest things for me.
Doug?
I agree. I mean, when you look at the numbers from the Seattle game, I mean, the Giants had 36 minutes of total possession, whereas if you look at the previous week, the 49ers had 40 minutes. So you would think the Giants had a lot of they had the better first down. You know, they held Seattle to, I think, 3 of 12 or 3 of 13 on third down, whereas they allowed the Niners to be like 9 for 16. You know, you look at some of the numbers and you felt like, without looking at the score, it's like, did the Giants win this game? Like, the Giants outgained a lot of the numbers that are essential to winning a game. But the two biggest things, obviously, were turnovers and obviously the final score. But you know, that's so yeah. And I think part of the clock is you're likely. I don't want to say guaranteed, but you're likely going to get Saquon Barkley back. He looks like his ankle is progressing, and so the Giants have run the ball well when they've been able to. When they get away from running the football and try to, you know, do this whole passing offense, and that's when they've gotten in trouble. Now, I'm not saying don't pass the football, but part of what makes the Giants offense work is setting up with Saquon Barkley. Matt Breida has done the best he can, but he's not Saquon. Saquon establishes the run. He establishes the flow of the game. What makes the passing game work is off of play action. When the running game is working and when Daniel Jones can use play action well, that's when the Giants' passing game works. And as we saw in Arizona, play action down the field to Jalen Hyatt, that worked. At times they were getting the ball to Darren Waller because they were able to establish a run, get play action going, and then they were able to start making things work. They weren't able to do it in Dallas, maybe just because of the rain. They fell too far behind. But on that first drive of that game, we saw Saquon Barkley stuffing the ball down the Dallas Cowboys defense's throat. And then the blocked field goal just changed everything. In San Francisco, there was no Saquon. And Breida was held to 17 yards. Granted, he got the touchdown, but that was really it. Saquon Barkley is so essential to this offense, as is Andrew Thomas, but he might not be playing. Even so, Saquon still had 93 yards total and 2 touchdowns in that comeback against the Cardinals. Getting Saquon, even if he's like 80, 85%, that's better than a lot of other running backs in this league. Get him healthy. He's looking like he's healthy. Get him back on the field. So at least you can start to have the running game respected enough to where maybe you can start setting up play action, getting, you know, the ball down the field to guys like Wan'Dale and Hyatt and Darren Waller. Because without Saquon, this offense just does not look the same. And with Saquon out there, he makes Daniel Jones a better football player. So I say control the clock, get Saquon involved as much as you can without, you know, obviously getting him hurt. And get Jalen Hyatt involved, even if you have to run some short routes, if you have to run drag routes, get Jalen Hyatt involved somehow. Like, it's just frustrating not to see this guy, you know, even if you throw him deep, throw the ball to him. It's such a frustrating thing just to watch this guy who's got speed for days, and he can obviously make some tough contested catches like he did in Arizona, and he's just not being used. Like, I think a little less of Paris Campbell and more of Jalen Hyatt. I feel like Jalen Hyatt can make things happen with his speed and his talent. And obviously, I feel like get the ball more to Darren Waller. But with the offensive line the way it is, and I'm going right back to Saquon. If Saquon's healthy, run the football behind him, because they had success the first week in Dallas and the second week in Arizona. Saquon was able to establish a run, and they're able to. That will create some things. So, and obviously, the Miami team they're 3-1. They're very considered dangerous right now and a possible early championship contender. But at the same time, Buffalo showed you can score points on them. You scored 40, almost put up 50 on them. So you can score on them. And I know the Giants have talent there. It's just a matter of being able to execute the plays and execute that talent. So Saquon, I feel like being healthy could be the key to this game. And I think that, good things could happen if they get him involved early, but they have to figure out, proper execution. Otherwise, you're looking at another ugly performance.
Right. And as important as Saquon is too, he needs to stay healthy and on the field, which is probably why the Giants had a number and didn't budge much from that number when trying to pay him. So Saquon, obviously, best offensive weapon, needs to prove it. Super quick here. Keys to the game. Building off what you said, Doug, explosive plays. The Dolphins defense gave up 48 points last week, but also 34 points in week 1. The Dolphins have given up a 104.9 rating to opposing quarterbacks. The question, though, is can any of the receivers break from Xavier Howard and Kader Kohu and Deshaun Elliott in enough time for Daniel Jones to deliver them the ball is my question. Pressuring Tua is key for me, too. You want to force Tua potentially into some mistakes. If Teron Armstead doesn't play, obviously he's hurt, out of practice today. It'll be Kendall Lamb at left tackle for Miami. And then Connor Williams and Robert Hunt are not these unstoppable players. In the middle, they're not 100%, so I expect Dexter Lawrence to have the upper edge there. Most importantly, stopping the run. Last week, it wasn't just Kenneth Walker. It was Zach Charbonnet. 5 rushes for 31 yards. The man is averaging over 6 yards a clip. And you look what Miami has. Raheem Mostert, 6 rushing touchdowns. And trying to pronounce his name correctly here. I think it's Devin Achane. 4 touchdowns on the year, averaging 11 yards. Achane, got it. Thank you. Yeah, it looks like he's the new bell cow in South Beach. So very excited for him. 6 total touchdowns on the year, 4 on the ground, 2 through the air, averaging 103 yards per game in just 3 games played. Hello, Devin. Welcome to the NFL. Good luck, Big Blue, stopping him on Sunday. That's a big problem. Please keep Dexter and Leo on the field as much as you can, Wink. Quickly here, any player, Sam, that catches your eye on Miami that could potentially really make an impact in this game? Any player on the Giants? What are you thinking here?
Definitely. I mentioned him earlier, and we're talking about him again. Devin Achane. He was somebody that I was going to keep my eye on. But I'll throw Andrew Van Ginkel into that just because of the the offensive line and how he's going to be all over Daniel Jones and all that good stuff. So I'll throw him in there. And then on the Giants side, I'll say Darren Waller, just because I want to see him targeted more and I want to see him in the red zone at least one time this season would be nice. So those will be my 2 guys. 3 guys.
Doug, do you have a 2 as well?
So for the Giants, definitely I want to see – I'm tossed up between Waller and Hyatt just because, obviously Saquon's coming back, but, you can't guarantee what we'll see from him just because he's been out for the last couple of games. I want to see the week 2 version of Jalen Hyatt. I want to see him going deep because I don't think Paris Campbell is it. And Isaiah Hodgins has kind of been MIA a little bit, and I want to see. I feel like Jalen Hyatt is supposed to be one of the superstars on this offense, especially in the wide receiver room. I want to see big things from him, And at the same time, Darren Waller basically is a wide receiver playing tight end. He creates mismatches. You know, if Daniel Jones had saw him in the back of the end zone, he could have had that touchdown. And then we had a different ball game against Seattle. So I want to see one of those two. And at the same time, on the flip, the player to obviously watch, you guys have mentioned him, Shane, I guess Devin Shane, I think is, yeah. You know, stopping the run, you know, Leonard Williams is kind of, he hasn't been quite the impact that, and, you know, you saw him fighting. You saw him fighting with guys because he was getting beat by backup linemen against Seattle. I want to see the big cat erupt. I want to see the big cat making, you know, granted, Leonard Williams isn't the guy that you expect to get 10, 12 sacks, but he can get after the quarterback. But most importantly, Leonard Williams is good at supposed to be stopping the run. This would be a game where getting back to stopping the run would help for Leonard Williams and to justify the salary cap number that he has, which is at $32 million. And a lot of people are saying, you know, trade him, you know, but, you know, Leonard Williams, for the most part, is essential to stopping the run. And I want to see Leonard Williams kind of get, you know, mad, get angry that he got embarrassed and start making plays, tackles for losses, the things that got him that contract from the Giants and why he's paid the way he is. I want to see some of that from him. That's because, you know, Devin Shane, he's made things happen. He was kind of the guy that nobody expected out of Miami, and all of a sudden, he was one of the must-have players in fantasy going into, I don't know if it was week 2 or week 3, but all of a sudden he was the name that everybody kept mentioning, and you know the Giants had a little issue stopping Kenneth Walker. So getting after Devin Shane early, because if the Giants don't, again, they could be in. I feel like the Dolphins can put up 35 points without blinking, and Devin Shane is part of that. So yeah, that's a guy you probably want to stop early and often, but then you also force Miami to pass the ball, and they like to do that too. But at least try to stop the run and then go from there.
Right, and then of course too, the year before, they played because of the new 17-game alignment throughout the course of the season. You play the one out of conference opponent from a specific division that has the same placement as you did the previous season. So it was the Dolphins in 2021. They held Hill in that game to a respectable amount of yardage. And Tyreek Hill, 4 touchdown catches on the season. He's a big player for Miami. 128 yards after the catch with 7 big play receptions. Tua Tagovailoa leads the NFL in passing through 4 weeks. Brian Dable was the OC at Bama when he benched Jalen Hurts for Tua. Fun fact for those of you watching that may not know that. Devin Shane, as we mentioned, Jalen Waddle, David Long Jr. as well, a prize free agent signing who has played pretty respectably thus far. And then quickly for the Giants, the entire offensive line, all 5 guys, sometimes they put 7 in there, whether it's Matt Pert, Mark Lewinsky, whoever it might be. We'll see. And then finally for the Giants, Daniel Jones, please prove us wrong, man. Just please. The Giants will be in this game if Jones has a good game. They will be in this football game. Daniel Jones, please prove us wrong. Finally, final segment of the evening, game predictions. Doug, as the guest, we'll start with you here on this one. I'm nervous to ask both of you this question. Who wins, and what is your final score?
All right. Right now, my gut. I'm gonna say Dolphins 41, Giants 22. Right now I don't feel good about the Giants going into this game. I would have felt better if they had won against Seattle. You know, momentum on their side, but they don't have momentum on their side. And I think it'll be good to get Saquon back if he is coming back, but you know, the offensive line is what it is. And Miami right now looks like a championship contender that can score a ton of points at will. And the Giants are back on the road, not looking like a good football team that we saw last year. So until the Giants can prove to me, to everybody, that they can hang with the big boys and just hang in general, I don't feel confident in picking the Giants to win right now unless they show me they can. So right now, Dolphins 41, Giants 22. I think it's going to be a very long game for the Giants. Maybe they'll score late. Who knows? But right now, until they could show to me that they are capable of winning a football game, I can't pick the Giants. So yeah, I think Miami wins fairly easy on Sunday.
Sam?
Yeah, your score was a little bit nicer than mine, but very similar actually. I have Miami winning 42-17, and that's being kind for the Giants. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more of a 7 or a 10 score on our end. But yeah, I agree. I think the same as Doug here. I'm expecting the worst, honestly, and the Dolphins can definitely score on us in many different capacities. So, unfortunately, I will not be picking the Giants this week, or probably any week until they can prove it.
Sam, it sounds like you're stuck. Almost pulled off a Cowboys there.
I know, I almost said
still stuck in
it.
week one. No one's recovered. Yeah. Simple here, 34-17, Miami. I think Jones plays better. I think the defense, it is what it is, right, at this point. They can't stop a nosebleed on the running game. They haven't proven they can tackle. The special team stinks. I mean, they might even give up a touchdown. Who knows? We didn't even mention his name, but Braxton Berrios might carve us up over the middle. Durham Smythe as well. We can't cover tight ends. So I think the Dolphins win this one comfortably, 34-17. And, then it'll be on to Buffalo. But, despite the struggles right now, there are brighter days ahead. It may not seem like it right now, but always keep the faith, folks. You never know what could happen. Any given Sunday is the theme. Doug, I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. You're an awesome insight and knowledge. Any final thoughts or plugs here before we let you go?
No, I'm just glad to be able to join you guys. I know it's hard right now for a lot of Giant fans to stay positive, and but like you said, on any given Sunday, any team can go out there and beat somebody. So as long as there's a heartbeat, and like I said, that's what I want to see. I want to see the Giants just fight, and if at least they fight, you have a chance. They always say there's a puncher's chance. The Giants. It's not like the Giants are this bottom of the barrel, no talent team. Like, have talent. It's young, but they just need to put it together, and that's what I want to see on Sunday. I just want to see some fight. I want to see that they actually care and they want to go out there and kind of try to salvage the season. So that's really what I want to see. So that's what the fan base wants to see. Just some fight. Just that blue collar Giant football, old school mentality. Who knows? Maybe I've seen games where the Giants have looked dead in the dirt, and all of a sudden have resurrected themselves to come back and find a way. So maybe that'll happen on Sunday. Maybe not. Like I said, I want to see it. I want to see the Giants prove to me they can win a football game. But the fan. I know the fan base is. There have been worse Giants football teams in the past. I don't think this is one of them. I think it's just a lot of unfortunate things have happened, but season's not over quite yet. There could be, miracles have happened, and that's what you kind of have to hope for. That's why you continue to watch every single Sunday.
Awesome, Doug. Appreciate you very much. Hope you enjoy the rest of your night and your week. Hopefully we can celebrate a win on Sunday, even though that is highly unlikely. Trying to stay positive and play better than we did last week. That's all we can do. Thank you so much, and we'll have to catch you again soon. This was a lot of fun, Doug. Appreciate you.
Oh, I had so much fun, guys. Yeah, let me know. I had a blast talking to you guys. I'd love to come back on again and talk some football. Hopefully some better football than what we've seen the last couple of weeks. But no, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate coming on and talking to you guys about Giants football, and hopefully we'll do this again in the future.
Absolutely, Doug. Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right. That was Doug Rush. Awesome guest from GMEN HQ. Sam, appreciate you joining me tonight. Rough show. Not for us, but talking about the GMEN, I should say. Might want to catch us, folks, on all of our social media for more reactions on possible hot topics and tea. with the New York Football Giants upcoming this week. The unpredictable could continue to happen here, like we saw with Neal today. With the way the media is going, if you like our content and like what we talk about, please make sure to check us out on all of our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. Really excited for next week's show, despite the result of Sunday's game, because we'll be previewing the Giants-Bills game, and that should be a lot of fun. Revenge game for Brian Dable, Joe Shane, and a bunch of the Giants players. Sam, any parting words here?
Please
ready
take
to go
it
to
at a
bed.
prime time next week. I'm begging. But no, I think we've said all that we can say about. Yeah, James, seriously. It's just it's rough. It's rough. But yeah, we've said all we can say. I think we're ready to sign off.
Absolutely. Hang in there, everybody. We will see you all next week on Big Blue Avenue. Appreciate you all. Have a good night. And without further ado, we're still going to say it. Let's go Big Blue.